Hey guys, Justin with Deep Dive Stocks here, and today is a pre-market dive, I guess, for Sunday, August 24th. We looked at LDPM and LDPS at the end of last week, and then we mentioned some topics, events to keep an eye out for with regards to ES futures and Bitcoin. And so now that the market is open, let's take a look because it's actually really cool. I'm glad that you joined me today. So let's get rid of the liquidity levels. So if you remember, you'll remember from last week. Here is when the video was made. We mentioned that there was this pattern of price going up, stagnating price, and then one of the ideas was to look out for the development of bearish liquidity, which would then indicate a test of the next support, and then so on and so forth, as we mentioned in last week's video. And we briefly then mentioned that the futures, was developing in a similar pattern, right? So the idea that Bitcoin was just kind of ahead by a little bit, mainly because it's 24 hours, right? So what's cool is we can actually see this in action. So first, let's take a quick review of Bitcoin. So this is the same as last time. So this is Bitcoin on the 15. We have LDPM up with LDPS. LDPM draws the lines, which are either resistances if it's above the price or support if it's below the price. And LDPS colors the candles green if the outlook is bullish or red if the outlook is bearish. On the 15-minute, that's a pretty good time frame to get general trends for the next full day. So we can see here, so we did mention there was that, I think, bearish liquidity in the video, or we mentioned that it was something to look out for, but we can see it quickly developed by the later that night on February at 9, or that's Friday, not February, the 22nd, bearish liquidity continued. We pushed through that support at LDPM L5. Bearish liquidity continued even more, and then we hit the next support. So remember, it's just about the kind of that leapfrog. So if you're bearish, you're going to go down. So where's the next support? Where can you anticipate the next support to be? It failed, and it did start to recover a little bit. So we get that bullish liquidity returns, and then it tries to overcome the resistance at LDPM L6, is rejected, develops bearish liquidity while testing that support at LDPM L5 once more, and then that bearish liquidity seems so far to have resulted in downside. So currently we still have bearish liquidity, although this appreciating price. And what's really cool too is last time we mentioned, when, I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a chart where the LDPMs were pointed up, and we said it's more ideal if LDPM is pointed down, in the sense that LDPM could be kind of moving to become a support. And we see a little bit of that here. So it's cool to see both sides. So back to back. So we see LDPM, the spot is appreciating, but LDPM is pointed downward. So this is a nice idea that spot is going to move over, and then it'll have that nice LDPM support. But for now, LDPS is bearish, so we have to keep an eye out for an elevated risk of this crossover being rejected. So it would seem that kind of probably nothing too special happening until LDPM 5 and spot for Bitcoin figure out what relationship they want to have. But there's a heightened risk of that being rejected, so we'll keep an eye out on that. But all of that to say, if we move all of this out and then we go back to futures, look what we have, right? So it's almost this identical scene, just kind of pushed back a little bit. We have this we had this nice big spot movement. We had this stagnating price, and now we're getting this bearish liquidity. So just like in Bitcoin, the outlook is going to be, if we just kind of extend LDPM L5 here, is going to be meeting LDPM L5. If price continues to stagnate, that probably won't be too far from now, around 10:45. But if, depending on who is playing in the pre-market, there is definitely a heightened risk that spot is going to be the eager party to move to that support, or rather need that support. But so far we can see that the anticipation is effectively the same as we would have here. Bloop. So really what we're looking for in the next, market session, pre-market market session, is probably this sort of behavior. Because we can see it's already, LDPMs are fanning out, so spot moves down. If that bearish liquidity continues, it'll move down again. If that bearish liquidity continues, it'll move down again, so on and so forth. So it's kind of cool because, again, I think I mentioned in the last video that there are times when LDPM and LDPS can look very noisy, a lot going on, but it really is, there's only so many patterns, and and I think there's like 5. And once you start noticing them, you start seeing them everywhere, and then that's where the kind of repeated nature of the market starts to show itself, which is cool because we get to see it through the lens of liquidity. So, all right, I just wanted to show you guys that. I thought that was pretty interesting, and it went very nicely, in line with my comments. So yay for chance. And so yeah, I wanted to capitalize on that, show you guys a really cool repeating pattern that happens when you look at equity conditions with LDPM and LDPS. And so, we'll see later, Monday evening, I'll do a video, a little update, and we'll see if the ES futures pattern played out just as well as the Bitcoin one did. So, all right. All right, guys, thank you. Thanks for coming. And if you want any other videos, let me know. Do the thing. And then, all right, I'll see you guys later. Enjoy the week. Happy trading. Bye.